You're going to get a progress report just like you do in every class. But, you know, a big part of that is the 30-second commercial, which you guys all did great on. Okay?
Oh, I want to see mine.
Well, the link was sent to you. So, Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Can you just move on? Thanks.
So we can look at it?
So you should look at it. And you need to, as we talked about earlier, you need to say it to 3 people or send it to 3 people before the end of the semester, which is March 20th.
Okay.
And then give me feedback.
Okay.
But again, if anyone's feeling overwhelmed, let me know and we can set up a time to talk outside of class, alright?
Okay. Don't my name come off that since I did that?
No, she won't go
Wilma's going to go over that.
I understand it all because I work with this stuff, so I'm calm now.
Okay, you feel better?
Yeah, I'm fine. Gotta get Rose.
Alright, so we're now talking about interview. So all that we've reviewed so far is about getting the job, right? So every step that we have taken so far is so that we can get to this point. So that we can get to this point, which is the interview. Once you get in and have an interview, you know, you have pretty decent odds of getting the job. Not 100% odds because obviously they're typically going to interview more than one person. But if they like you enough that they've read your cover letter, they've reviewed your resume, and they want to bring you in for an interview, that is a fantastic sign. Okay? Huh? Yeah. So now we want to talk about how to do well and successfully interview once you get to that, you know, once you get that opportunity. So I'm also going to go over some different types of interviews, okay? So, real basic. What's a job interview? Can someone tell me?
In-person interview.
In-person interview, okay. Anyone else? What's a job interview?
Opportunity
for a
for
job.
them to learn more about the job.
So it's typically the last and most important step of the job search process. All of the steps are important, so it's hard to say that. But it's a 30 to 45 minutes, typically, a typical 30 to 45 minute meeting with a potential employer. Can be a lot shorter, can be longer. I've had all day job interviews, and I know other people have too. So it depends, you know. But it's ultimately an opportunity for the employer or the recruiter to learn more about you and for you to learn more about the position. So I know people get I get super nervous when I have a job interview, right? But you need to remember that not only are they interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You want to make sure that this is the right job for you. Okay? You want to make sure this is what you want to do next in your career. So you're definitely interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. So there's some things that I really want everyone's attention. So there's some things that are really important to do before the interview. So, Stephanie, can you tell me what one of the important things to do before the interview is? Tell me something to do before the interview that's important. Hold on. What's important to do before the interview without looking at the board?
Make sure your breath is fresh.
Seriously.
That's true.
That's true, right?
Make sure you're proper editing your clothes, you know.
Make sure you look nice. Yeah.
You know.
Your clothes aren't stained or, yeah.
Make sure you're poised and not slumping.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're looking them in the eyes.
Yeah.
And not away or in the air.
Absolutely. So just like our 30-second commercial, we got upset when Wanda was rocking, right? Just like that. You don't want to do anything crazy to distract people. You want to be dressed properly.
Right.
You want to be you want to have good posture, just like Elizabeth said. You also, before the interview, just like we were just doing, we were learning about the company, right? We were visiting companies' websites to write our cover letters. Okay? So that's something you all have to do before you have an interview. You want to study that website? I get so aggravated because now we are meeting with, so you'll either meet with me or Wilma when you have a job interview. It's about a 15-minute meeting, but we'll just go through some basic questions with you. It aggravates me to no end to hear people say, no, I haven't visited the company website. Like, it's right there at your fingertips. You guys have so much information. Like, take advantage of it, you know? Definitely visit the company's website. If you're lucky enough to get this far, that you had an interview without viewing the company's website, make sure you are prepared for the interview and have viewed it then. You can also, like, I literally will read companies' annual reports. Everything's on the website. Well, mostly things are on the website now. You can read annual reports. You can literally just Google the company and see what other people have to say about them, or what other, you know, press media has to say about them. You want to review that job description. So that job description, which I don't think I heard anyone printing out for the cover letter, you have to review that. You want to make sure you totally know what you're interviewing for. You don't want to go in and have no clue what position you're interviewing for, right? You want to make sure that you're qualified, that you can answer to all those, you know how it says like key requirements? You want to make sure you can answer why you are well qualified for each of those, you know, requirements.
Can you see the turnover rate, like how often they lay off or something like that?
Can you ask that? Or
No, can you see it on the website?
sometimes, not usually though. That's, I mean, maybe you could find that information from doing a Google search, but I've never seen that on a company website. Because it's not really something they want to disclose, right? If they have a high turnover rate, I think that you could kind of deduce it if you see a lot of job openings for that company. So, like, Liberty Resources, they used to have a lot of job openings 5 years ago. Now, not because they had a high turnover rate, but because they were growing and growing, and they had so many job openings. So, if you look at the company's website often and regularly, you might be able to kind of deduce whether or not they seem to have a high turnover rate. If you see the same position posted again and again and again, it might give you a heads up that something's a little fishy with that, right? Okay, so before the interview,
Yeah, a lot to do with funding too.
yeah,
I know that's one of the aspects.
Yes.
The funding.
absolutely. So in your books, let me see your book, Wanda. In your books, there are interview questions. Looks like they're on page 21. There's the 40 most difficult interview questions. There are also behavioral interview questions. Huh?
It's in the book. Okay.
Your page 19 is where it starts. Well, no, page. All right, page 15. It looks like page 15 is where the interviewing section starts. There's an article, How to Win at an Interview, Preparing for Interviews, Interview Do's, Interview Don'ts, Behavioral Interview Questions. And then on page 21, there's the 40 most difficult interview questions. The nice thing about this on page 21 is it kind of gives you answers. And I mean, not specific to you, but it generally coaches you on how you should be answering the questions, right? So, for example, number 1, do you have your book open, Edith?
Yes.
Do you want to read number 1? So the question is, tell me about yourself. And this is how it recommends you answer it.
Tell me about yourself. Number 1, tell me about yourself. Give a 2-minute pitch that you have purposely prepared for this question. Make sure your answer is geared to your work history, ambitions, and how they apply to the current opportunity. Emphasize your experience and accomplishments related to operations, sales, marketing, strategic planning,
Okay, so these are 40 interview questions. They recommend that you, page 21, that you should be answering kind of according to this. So, sorry, thanks, Wanda. So I would encourage you to look over those before you have an interview with a particular company. Practice those interview questions. There's nothing wrong with literally getting out a piece of paper and writing an answer to questions that you expect to be asked. Because you have an idea from the 40 most difficult questions from your past experiences, just from common knowledge that you guys have gained. You have an idea of some of the questions that you might be asked, right? And how you should answer them.
Well, I always learned that
Uh-huh.
well, I didn't always learn that. If you're in an interview and you're unsure of how to answer a certain question, repeat the question back before.
Oh, I love that.
So if you ask me what skill do you bring to the table, just you would say, what skill do I bring to the table? That's enough time for you to be able to organize and visualize.
Absolutely. I always recommend repeating the questions back. So we used to do an interview stream, like where you would literally practice interviews with, and we might do it in a later class, where you literally practice interviewing with a computerized person. I always recommend that people repeat the question because it buys you enough time. It helps you phrase what you're going to say, right? I mean, and it makes sure that you're understanding the question correctly. Because if you're not and you like give the person this answer that's totally off the wall, that's not really going to help your situation, right? So definitely, I love that. Thank you. Definitely repeat the question back. But so, again, before the interview, the next thing I would recommend is determine questions to ask the company. This is important because you always, even though you might think, like, if they're always going to ask you, do you have any questions for me? Mm-hmm. You might think that, like, if you pay attention and you say, no, I'm totally good, that's a good thing. They kind of want you to ask questions. There should be questions you have, right?
Like what?
Okay.
Besides the salary.
What's my day-to-day responsibilities consist of? Don't ask something that you should know. So don't ask like
How much you get paid? Right.
well, yeah, but don't ask like, when did your company start? You should know that by looking at the website, right?
Yeah.
Like you should be able to find that out. Don't ask generic questions where you can find the answers. If it's a like more complex question,
And
you
if
can ask it.
even if they expanding, that's being into
Also,
on the
Or you
internet.
can grow in a company.
Mhm.
I mean,
It's a growing
another
company.
position.
that can, yeah. I actually, Elizabeth, say that you should not ask
No.
salary questions in the
Right.
first interview. Typically, you're going to have more than one interview.
Right.
So I would really shy away from asking salary questions in the first interview because, like, why should they bother telling you about their salary and their benefits if they're not going to hire you?
That's true.
And not only that,
And they get you all worked up for nothing too.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
only that, I always feel like if they're, sometimes they wanna, they may have a set pay rate, but you may have more experience.
Qualifications to get more
So
pay.
I would
Yeah.
wait for an offer to come back
Good.
before I wait to ask what the pay rate is.
Right, right.
So the offer may be different than what the advertisement said.
And the interviewer may not have anything to do with your salary
Yeah,
rate.
that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
That's when you start showing your
There's
ID.
a difference between interviewing with a recruiter
Yeah.
and human resources
Yeah.
because they have to work hand in hand, but if you don't go directly through human resources first and you use the recruiter,
Yeah.
they may not discuss your pay rate until you get over to that company.
So I interviewed for a job at University of Pennsylvania a few years ago, and I was so excited. I, for some reason, asked them about the benefits, or we started talking about it. I don't know if I brought it up or not, but she started telling me about it, right? She started, and she was getting ready, I think, to go on maternity leave. So she was, I thought we were best friends, So like we had this whole thing going. She was telling me about her benefits package, and I was getting excited. I was asking a lot of questions about that. Why? Can you guys tell me why that is not a good scenario?
Because it's not important. You're not talking about the extra.
Because you're talking about
Right,
what they
talking
can do
about
for you.
Your personal.
You gotta talk about what
Personal.
you're gonna do for them.
These are all right
Right.
answers. You don't want to talk about what they
Right.
can do for you.
You wanna tell them
You
what you
wanna
got
sell
to offer.
yourself.
What you can do for
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I personally feel you sound desperate when you just come right out and talk about money.
Right. That and
it's
for,
anywhere in life, period. If somebody says, oh, or you get paid for internship, or you
Yeah.
get paid, like, that's the first thing out your mouth.
yeah, exactly.
You sound desperate.
And then the other problem was same with like if you ask about benefits. So I was like really interested in her maternity leave policy. Well, it's not good for me to basically say, hey,
As soon as I
in
get
about
this job,
9 months,
you get pregnant.
I'm gonna get pregnant, and yeah. So and that's kind of what you're saying when you say, hey, tell me about your vacation policy.
Yes.
Oh, I get a
90 days, I'm
month.
gonna be taking a trip.
Yeah. So
That's important though.
it's important.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying do not. I would
No,
not
I wouldn't
ask
do it on
that
the first
on a
interview, but I'm
first
going to
interview.
ask.
Appropriate time when they are
Exactly.
talking about it. I wouldn't go in inquiring about it. 'cause it
I think it's
like,
I'm a
first on the job.
Right, I just want to come here because y'all got a 401, 2, and 3.
Exactly.
I want your vacation time, I want your coin, and I don't want to
Yeah.
go to work.
Yeah, exactly. So then, you're gonna determine questions to ask the company that are outside of the benefits, that are outside of the salary, right? Because you can avoid those questions until the second interview. Second interview, it might come up. It might be a more appropriate time to ask in that second or third interview, but you don't want to ask anything about that in the first interview.
But you should ask those questions until it looks like you're being hired, right?
Exactly.
Like your third interview, your second interview,
Yeah.
you move on to the next
Yeah,
one.
when you basically have an offer.
They start asking you for your credentials and your IDs and stuff, then maybe
That's
say
when
it.
you
Yeah.
know you won't be able to ask the question about the form.
So you have to figure out what questions to ask the company. When you go on an interview, I want you to have 3 questions at least written down that I can tell you've studied the company's website. You know what's going on. So like for example, maybe I studied the company's website and see that they're doing an annual appeal on X. Like if I've studied the company's website, then I know what they're doing. It looks good, right? For me to be like, oh, well, I noticed on your website that your annual appeal is XYZ. Can you tell me more about that? Or can you tell me maybe how much money you've raised? I don't know, have a specific question. Can you tell me how many people you've reached through this? How long it's been going on? Not the kind of question that you can find the answer to, but one that shows you're engaged, that you've done your homework.
Like, what's a
Okay.
good question? Give us a little rundown.
Well, I said we talked about what's the day-to-day responsibilities of the job. Can you tell me more about, something that shows you've done your homework and you know about the company and the job.
Is the question like if you see they got more than one campus, is that an appropriate question too?
I'm sorry?
If it's like more than one campus. you say,
Yeah.
Which campus would I be
Yeah,
at?
yeah,
That's a good one.
absolutely.
How's your open door policy to,
If I don't, can I move up or?
Right.
Yeah.
growth with me moving up?
Some people have been asking about what's your inclement weather policy? That's a good question, especially in the winter, right? So just to kind of know those things. All right.
Go ahead, Robin.
Then the next thing, so you are gonna assemble the needed materials. You're gonna make sure you have a blank notebook. You're gonna make sure you have 3 copies of your resume at least. You're gonna make sure you have your list of professional references. I want you to have that cover letter that you wrote for this job. Why do I want you to have that cover letter?
They say ask you for it again.
No, that, and I can read it, can I?
Well, more so, I'm thinking it's important to have it because it's reading over it can help refresh your memory.
Oh, it's your notes.
It's your notes.
my
This
notes.
is for
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have the resumes, I'd have the professional references for the company. The references and the resume, they may not ask for it. You very well may just be carrying it there and that's it. You carry it home. But you want to look prepared. In TNS
Just because
too.
you get nervous, you forget yourself, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't notice.
In TNS too, we give you like a nice little portfolio. Do we order we have
Yes,
we have enough?
Set up.
Okay.
It's not on the boat.
So we have a nice little portfolio that we give everyone with different pockets, right? So you're gonna keep copies of your resume,
It looks like
references.
this. It looks like this.
That looks nice to take to an interview.
it does.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
So rather than you just taking like a, Manila folder, it just looks, or your resume and get it all crinkled. You want to take that with you.
And inside each one, it is,
There's different sections.
there's different sections. Last time it was, it says notes and directions, cover letters. It says there's more cover letters, resumes. It said resumes. It said resumes, government resumes, professional references, personal references, ticket to work or the Schedule A letter, jobs applied for, job descriptions, interview questions, mock interview evaluations.
Okay.
Okay?
You should have your own business card.
No.
No.
I mean, some people tell you that you should. I don't think you should.
No.
I don't think so.
If
They
you're a
take-
job seeker,
Yeah.
I just, you get so many business cards. They want your resume.
Right.
And you want to get their business card.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But so the onus is on you. The responsibility is yours to then follow up with that. You giving them a little business card with your contact information, you have to be exceptional for them to dig that little business card out and contact you. I think it's kind of, I don't know. I actually think it's kind of tacky or arrogant to have a business card.
Right.
I don't know. But literally,
Because you're not working, right?
You're not
So
working.
No.
Yeah, so what do you do with a business card?
Right.
That's all right.
Where this guy.
Sometimes people say do it.
He was a college graduate and he was applying for a job and he went in the interview and left them his business card. And my first thought was when he came out, you left them your business card, but did you get theirs?
Right.
Because he had that look on his face where you could see him looking around in the office like, they might have some information laying around that he could pick up and just slide in his thing and walk on out the door. But then that means you didn't complete the job. You went in there and you just left it on the table.
Right.
Right. I don't
And
know.
they left it on the table too.
Yeah, that's what they did. They stuck it down in the drawer. Exactly.
So that's a personal opinion, just like a resume. Everyone has their own, but
Your resume is your business card, basically, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that has more information than a business card. Okay, next, so after you assemble the needed materials, you're going to determine the location of the interview and who you will be meeting with. This sounds dumb. This sounds like, of course I'm going to do that. But but I think it's important. For instance, I had another interview with Chuck, right? So where's Chuck?
34th and Spruce.
The Children's Hospital.
Right. So 34th and Spruce. So, well, I was not aware of this.
If they expand and they get the,
So I was down here, right? I live around here. I was getting ready to go, literally, from Liberty to 34th and Spruce. I thought I was going to have to take the train up. Thank God I double-checked the address of the interview right before I left, because it was right in the Wanamaker building, right by Macy's, right? There's tons of different locations, so make sure you check it. Because if I got all the way up to 34th, there's no way I would have been able to get back in time. So
Never be late for this.
never, obviously, that, yeah.
always be on time.
Always be early.
Yeah, be early, not on time, because you gotta get situated.
You gotta get situated, there might be paperwork, you never know.
What about this question? You get there to the interview, you're prepared, you're ready to for this interview, and they stall, like you're not even there for an interview.
That happens. I mean, it's kind of business stuff. Yeah, you want to be flexible. You do not want to be like, well, listen, I gotta go. I have,
You need to be patient and wait.
you need to be patient. That's why if you take CCT, we encourage you to make sure, like I've had people go on interviews and literally schedule their ride for like an hour later. Don't do that, because you do not want like that to be like, all right, I gotta go, CCT's here. Like, you want to have as much time as needed. Clear your day, yeah.
I have another.
Uh-huh.
Thank God I
If you're
don't
not
do it.
familiar with where the area is, do a dry run.
Yeah, I do that too. But
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I get somebody to
Thank
show
you.
me exactly where it's
I
at.
like that. So then with the next day.
Well, you know what? I mean, actually, hold on a few minutes. Let's get through
How
this
long is it gonna
first.
take? And septic
But
does
then
that
I
too.
do want you to. Thanks for reminding me.
Whole septic
You have to
does
leave?
exactly
Okay.
what buses and where you have to catch and how long it takes you to get there.
All right, guys. So next things.
Find out on your own.
These are 4 types of interviews. There is going to be some sort of question about this tomorrow.
But I'll put the other one.
So I forgot what it is, but just pay attention. The 4 types of interviews: informational interviews, phone screens, panel interviews, and behavioral interviews.
Get home.
Yeah. So the first one, an informational interview, is an opportunity to learn about an area of interest from someone who is an expert in the field. It is not a job interview, but it can provide connections. So when I was laid off for a while, I was told that you should always do informational interviews. You should network with people. It's a great way. So I asked people that I respected, that I knew were in the same profession, for informational interviews. And then at that informational interview, that you have to have questions prepared about them, like, you know, tell me about your day-to-day responsibilities, blah, blah, blah. You want to seem prepared, but it's an opportunity for you to then say, thank you so much, you know, might you have anyone else that you'd be able to connect me to? And then hopefully that person is going to connect you to other people in the field who, again, might be hiring, might have other connections for you. So it's kind of like a network that you're going to be able to create through informational interviews. It's a great way if you're going into a new career. It's a great way to learn about that job, right? And to make connections if you don't have any. Alright, the next thing is a phone screen. These are not in any sort of order. These are just phone screen. So that's when a recruiter calls you, right? This is why it is so important to have voicemails set up that do not, like, that are professional and don't have, like, screaming kids. Exactly. This is why you want to have a nice professional voicemail set up. So we have that script where you want to, you know, say, hi, this is so-and-so, I can't come to the phone right now, but please leave a message. We want you to have a professional voicemail.
Yeah, yo, holler at me, not really with employers. I have gone to the next job applicant with a stack of resumes purely because they didn't like the sound of their voicemail. Loud music blaring, and I'm like, yeah, not serious. You know? Like, I've got a stack of 10 resumes. I'm making calls. Somebody says, you've reached such and such, please leave a message. I do. They have a lot of, like, personal stuff. I think, you know, you're in job search?
Right.
You know, I respect your personal life is personal, but when you're job searching, your personal phone is your calling card. Yeah. Yeah. You know, if you hear, like, babies screaming in the background, literally, like, you hear babies screaming in the background on a voicemail, you think to yourself, that person can't control their own family. How would they be a good employee? That person doesn't have good enough judgment to have a professional voicemail. That kind of thought is allowed to go through an employer's mind as they're screening you. You don't have good judgment. Nobody's supposed to hold little things like that against you, but come on, people are people. First impressions.
Absolutely.
Do everything Emily tells you. And I would doubt that that conflict for tomorrow is going to be a conflict.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
But I didn't, maybe I just didn't read it on my schedule, or maybe it wasn't printed. Tomorrow's meeting, yeah. I don't know.
It was a tentative and it was just confirmed, so I had it on there
Oh,
as
so it
tentative.
was not.
It was on there, it just said tentative. But
Well, now we have 2 tentatives at once, but
Yeah.
yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
I'll let you know tomorrow if there's a problem.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and confirm it. Okay. Okay.
Thanks. See you
Okay.
guys. Bye-bye.
So some of the things that you may be asked on the phone screen. Oh, sorry.
Is it okay, if you don't put your name, or you just leave your number, or you should leave your name and,
Yeah.
Your name and,
Yeah.
because I don't know if I'm calling your phone. You understand what I'm saying? If the recruiter's trying to set up a.
You want a copy of what we use?
Yeah. Wilma's gonna.
An appointment, he needs to know that.
I wasn't sure if you guys still did it in BBC anymore.
They get it in that folder.
So guys, in BBC, which is the class you should have upcoming, we rehearse what you should have on your voicemail.
Okay.
Wilma's gonna print out a copy for you guys. You know, if you have a voicemail you're happy with, that's fine, as long as it sounds good. But if you're unsure, please look at this script that she has, okay?
And I'll tell you this too. I know when I was in this class, I'll just say it like this. Some people live alone.
Right.
And you don't want them to even know your name when they call that number.
Right.
So
Right.
Google, you can get google.com. You can actually get a free telephone number. Google. So in my class, I got my free telephone number from Google, which was 215-908-5744. And that's the phone number I used on my resume.
Good.
Okay? So now when you called me, it had the correct script. And I only use it for job search. It's a free phone number you can get with your Gmail account.
Okay.
Okay? And you can also attach your other phone numbers to it. So maybe you had that phone, but you can have it sent to another number, and also you can have it sent to your email.
Okay.
But it has the correct thing. You have to have a Gmail account first. Okay. And if you have a Gmail account, it's right there on the top of
How
the
do
page.
you
Yes.
get the
Yeah.
Gmail account?
I didn't know you could get a free number.
It's a free number.
Like,
A Gmail account is free?
Yes, all email accounts are free. Don't create one yet. Okay, listen up, guys.
Uh-huh.
If any of you do not have a Gmail account, don't create one yet. Okay?
not yet.
All right? This is just what she's saying that we would want to do. Because in the next classes, such as EER, BBC, you will create a professional Gmail account.
I will do that.
All right? So you can wait till then.
Sian had a question that I think.
I'm asking this question as if I was one of y'all. Would a generic voicemail that the phone number automatically sets up, is that suitable if you don't want to say your name? It does read out your phone number and it says leave a message at the tone.
What do you guys think?
I don't know.
No, it doesn't.
Because I don't know if I'm calling CI to set
Yep.
up an appointment for an interview, or if I'm calling Emily, or just dialing the wrong number, period. I don't want to.
If it's not set up, yeah, I feel like you do.
If it's the wrong number, so
Yep.
I think we should say your name, and even if you don't say your first name, at least say your last name with your handle, and then the message, and then that's just my personal opinion.
Anita, you got the homework, right? Okay.
That's a good
No,
answer.
there's so much.
I was torn on that myself because like when I was doing my job search and everything, I didn't have a voicemail set up, but it still worked. People still call me back because I always answer. I always call them back when they have the voicemail.
I would set up a voicemail
But yeah, it makes more sense to set
Yeah.
up a voicemail.
so that the
With the
employer
competition
knows.
being the way it is, you need to set up a
Yeah.
voicemail that says, you have reached Stephanie Richardson. Please leave me a detailed message and repeat the number.
No.
Okay?
But in the State of the Union the other day, did you guys all hear that the unemployment rate has gone down?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes, I did. I looked at it.
You heard that on the video the other
Yeah.
day.
I know. I always said that. Yeah.
Say what you just
And
said.
wait a minute, I'm gonna tell you why.
Can you repeat
One of the main reasons it went down, because of the 7% rule.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it was not
That's
being
actually
followed.
wasn't being
It has always been legal,
Yeah.
but nobody was enforcing it.
Yeah.
The 7% rule that has been there,
Excuse me, what
was
did you
not
say
enforced
again?
till Obama got in.
What is
Did you
the
say that
And it
was
says that
The unemployment
anybody that's
Oh, yeah.
SSI,
So,
SSD,
yeah, I saw
outside
sleep
with
on it.
disability,
Yes.
anybody that receives $50,000 or more money from the government must hire that group of people.
One, 2
Right.
years ago, had
Must
me
have
on
7%
Because
of
I
their
saw something
staff.
that,
It's
you know
been
how
there.
they had
Yeah.
the,
It just
he
wasn't
did the
enforced.
state of the dress down at the bottom, they put tweets and everything.
Yes.
And I seen when he said, hire a veteran,
Okay.
hire a
Yes.
disabled.
Right,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
wasn't being enforced.
Right.
And the 7%
I
rule
remember
has
that.
two parts to it. It talks about
7%.
people with disabilities and people with veterans, and it's been there.
So,
It's been there.
so phone screen is one type of the interview, right? You might want to ask, is this a good, or they may ask you, is this a good time to talk? Tell me about yourself. It's literally, it can be just like a typical interview. So when you answer the phone, you know, you might want to make sure you're not about to get on the subway, or you're not like outside waiting for your kid after school where it's noisy. If you have that professional voicemail set up, then it can go to there. Or you can just answer, you know, no, this isn't a good time to talk. Might I be able to call you back soon?
You don't know when they want to call you.
Right. You have no idea when they're going to call you. So this is one more reason to set up your voicemail professionally and always kind of be on your guard when you're job searching. Okay? Another type of interviewing is panel. I know we talked about this a little yesterday, right? Panel interviews are becoming a very popular kind of interviews. Sugar House Casino in particular does it, okay? That we work with. So a panel interview can be 2 or more people interviewing you at the same time. I had an interview with like 5 people. It was the director of development, you know, like the person I would be replacing. So it can be a lot of people. When we interview people, or Sion, when we interviewed you, how many people were there in the room?
I think you were there.
So there's a lot of people, right? Like there's several people. So it can be that way. It can be 2 or more people interviewing you at the same time, or in like the situation with Sugar House, you could be one of 10 people being interviewed at the same time. So they might literally go down the line and ask every single person that question.
Right, and I remember the one question they asked in this last group interview that we know some people went on, said, okay, I'm gonna ask everybody this question. Name one word that would best describe you. And they went randomly. It wasn't like me, like that, so you didn't know which one to get. So then when they said, okay, lady right here, Karen, you went, it's up, that's the word. That was it.
Tremendous.
Okay? So when you get in certain classes in the academy, you will be asked, name 3 words that will best describe you. So y'all have that in your mind. Because you're going to have time to figure it out right here in the academy. Because you don't know when that's going to come up. Okay? You're going to have it if you haven't already had it.
Wow.
You do get it in writing.
Alright, so that's a panel interview. The next type of interview is behavioral interviewing.
A star.
Now, this is a technique that more and more employers are using. If you turn to page, I don't know, in your book, there's a whole sheet on behavioral interview questions. So, I'm not sure.
It might be in the handout.
No, it's in the book. I just saw
Okay.
it.
It's on page I don't know.
Page 26.
26?
No, I'm sorry. This is the questions to ask at the time.
Keep going. Before or after that? So, what is a behavioral interview?
You don't.
Oh, I see it. Page 19.
Page 19? Okay. Yep. So, does someone want to read one?
I'll read. Describe a situation.
These are sample questions.
Describe a situation in which you're able to use someone to see things your way.
Okay, so that's the question. Describe a situation where you're able to successfully convince someone to see things your way, right?
Page 19.
Yeah. So the method that is recommended to use when answering a behavioral interview question is the STAR technique. That's the acronym, okay? So the situation, you want to paint the situation. And that you can merely do by essentially repeating the question. So a time when what was the question?
Everybody has their live scribe pen on, and at this point you said
I'm
behavior
sorry,
interview,
it's a
star
situation
situation.
in which you were able to use persuasion to
Tony and
successfully
Karen?
convince someone to see things your way.
Okay. So, a time when I was able to use persuasion to successfully convince people to see things my way was when I was doing fundraising for a company and I needed to raise $100, from each of the donors. So I needed to motivate them and excite them about the mission so that I could inspire them to want to donate the money. Okay, so that's the situation.
Right. The task is to raise the money.
And that's the task. You have the task and situation kind of can go together. So situation and task, you say the situation, you literally are painting a picture of a time you had, okay? And you have to mention what that task is.
Fundraising.
So you want to, so for me, it was fundraising for $100.
Alright, now what would a person do if they've never worked? And they ask that.
Good question.
Use the situation.
From life's experience.
So
Like-
has everybody in here worked?
Yes.
Suppose we have someone who's never had a job.
But they have
They
first,
have-
they have to
I
have
know
some
how to
type of
convince people to come to church.
If they have to
Persuade.
Seriously, it's a volunteer position,
Okay,
right?
what kind
Yeah.
of situation would you think? For a man?
find a job.
No, she said if you didn't have a job.
Oh, never had a job.
Persuade somebody to go on a date.
Wait, what?
If it's a guy.
I mean, it was a guy. You
Okay.
said if it was a guy.
Somebody give him a job.
Yeah.
So they never had a job,
They
so
never
they still
had a
don't
job.
have a job. So that situation didn't work.
I don't know if I'd use the persuade someone to go on a date. That can be a little.
No,
You
no.
have to use see what the vibe is. If it's someone that you feel connected to, you
I'm
can
just
say
saying.
that and laugh, right?
If you know somebody, if you know that person,
Who's speaking? She's speaking.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I was just piggybacking off what Stephanie said. Persuasion to get you. If a guy can persuade you to give him his money, that's a situation.
Oh, he done tried.
That's a situation. Because if you put it in his hand, he done persuaded you, he done gave you the task, he need this money, you gave it to him, and he controlled it. He got that money.
Why is the guy giving you the money?
No, she said, he was.
That's just like saying if
Persuade.
somebody go out for a political
He
job,
somebody give
never
money.
did that job,
money
never was in
for
a political
whatever.
field.
Something, whatever.
And
whatever.
I know somebody, Mayor Chester.
No,
Okay,
this person never did anything
Okay.
like
Get
that.
to the next
So he
point.
needed money because he didn't have it. He don't have a job
Get to
anymore.
the next point.
So he
Oh,
persuaded
you
you
don't
to
look
give
for
him
an
some money.
So that's one thing.
What's your job?
So something else.
Oh.
Maybe that
Oh,
person said, well, I don't
recreational.
do that.
Yeah.
You should talk to
This is a real life situation. I'm telling you.
to trust her.
This is a real life situation.
I know my operator.
Yeah.
Get
This
something.
person never worked.
Convince
This
somebody to help
person,
you move your stuff out of one place to
you know,
another.
underneath the umbrella of their
That's a
parents.
situation. You gotta convince somebody. to
Right.
He
help
persuaded his parents to
Right.
do
Why
it.
should I help you move your stuff when you know? Tell me why.
Yeah, because that was a real situation for me. Like, I tried to convince people to.
All right, but I'm-
and,
Okay, all right. That's your person. I'm trying to talk about a personality who has never done that. They're an introvert. They have been truly under a rock. Okay? So now you're pulling them out of it to go to the next level. They've never worked. You know, they've always just had the basics of what they need. And that might have been given from their parents.
They can be 19 years old.
And they could be 19 or 20 years old. So now they're job searching. So now this question comes up. You're preparing them. You're telling them questions to ask. You tell them how to be prepared. But now an employer comes at them with something like that. And they go, I don't know.
They're gonna say, I don't know.
You don't want them to say, I don't know.
You do not want to say, I don't
You
know.
do not want to say, I don't know. So you're going to have to reference them back, maybe to high school.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Reference them all the way back.
Now somebody even fills your application out.
That's why I'm here. You know what I'm saying?
So, and volunteer opportunities are great to use, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't had tons of work experience, you can use volunteer opportunities.
Yes.
So you want to say the action. So I was able to raise $10,000. Totally making this up, but you know, like you want to say what that action was that you took, or I'm sorry, by calling 100 people, friends and family. That's the action. So you're doing the action by calling 100 people and putting forth a letter writing campaign. The result is I was able to raise $10,000, okay? Now, situation, task, action, result. The most important thing, and we've had this, you know how we have mock interview days? A lot of the feedback from employers has been people forget to tell me the result. People will tell me this great scenario, this great story about how they took this awesome action, but they don't tell me what was accomplished. So you need to remember, you're selling yourself. This is an interview. You want to have good results. You want to paint a situation. Yeah, exactly. Where you can close it. Where you can give a good story about how you were able to increase sales by, 25%. Like, just, you want to have a situation, okay? So there are some sample behavioral interview questions. As I mentioned earlier in this slide, these are becoming very common. Behavioral interview questions where they expect, the employer doesn't want a one-word answer. It's a multi-step question, right? So I literally had to ask what the question was again. Because there's a lot to it. So you want to maybe take a note, jot something down, gather your thoughts, pause before you answer this question. Maybe you need to ask them to repeat something. But you want to definitely gather your thoughts so that you can come up with the thorough answer. This is not a question where you can give a one-word answer or even like a one-sentence answer. They want a story. That's what a behavioral interview is. Okay?
So what do you suggest for a person to get confidence if they're not confident like that? Everybody's not worthy.
I'm not worried. So
So you just saying write it down, that helps you more?
Yeah. So writing things down, like I've always been taught to be to the point, not to go into lots of details with stories and stuff. So I will have to, if I have an interview coming up, and maybe I'll try to elaborate by jotting down a few notes to myself, thinking about it. That's the most important thing for me before an interview, is having that notice so that I can think about the questions that they may potentially ask me and gather my stories. Because you want to have scenarios that you can jump to. Like if you guys didn't notice, I kind of struggled to come up with that story. If you have an interview, you want to have scenarios at hand that you can refer to. You might have, I literally have had interviews where I'll have a few scenarios in mind and refer to them in different ways. Maybe you might have to bend the truth a little bit, That's okay.
If you don't look like that kind of person, you know what I mean?
What's that?
You are who you are. How does that come off natural if that's not you?
But if you practice, if you have situations, because I'm telling you, I am not a wordy person. For me, I need to practice. And I think that practice, how everyone says practice makes perfect. If you practice that situation, if you practice those questions, if you jot down answers so that you have kind of a script to go off of, that should help you. So you have some highlights. Keila, maybe you take a notebook with you and you have a few things jotted down.
I'm definitely a wordy person. I'm fine.
Then why did you? I was like, you talk all the time. You're just trying to
You ain't lying about that one.
Behavioral interview questions. All 14 of these correct
for all 23 of those questions, and they are just examples.
Right, it's just wording for each time they
Yeah.
ask you, but it's really.
But they're all questions where they're pretty much asking for, and there can be other questions.
Right.
But they want you to kind of use that STAR technique. So what's a really good way to know they're asking you a behavioral interview question? I think what do a lot of those questions have in common?
All about you.
They start with a time, I think, that says, tell me about a time. Tell me. That's your indication
Or give me.
that they want a story.
What are they getting from that? See if you're a problem solver or what?
See if you're a problem solver. See how your memory is. See how you're able to process information. See how you're able to articulate, spit back out information. Much better word than spit back out. Articulate information.
Like people, they know your story.
No, that's not really my excuse.
So I learned that.
Alright, so give me an example of. This is how you know it's a behavioral interview question. Give me an example of. And these are some of the, questions they may ask. Or it's going to start, tell me about a time. Those are your kind of like indications that they're asking for a story. They're asking, it's a behavioral interview question.
So
Okay.
if they say tell you a joke, but you just watch what you say.
Yeah, definitely.
What did she say? They said
Joke, 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 joke.
We all be jobless if we remember fast.
Yeah.
I got some jokes.
Alright, so what is the employer looking for in your, I don't know why I have this slide. What is the employer looking for in behavioral interview questions? You just asked this, right, Kayla?
Yes.
So, communication skills. They want to see how you communicate. They want to see what your analytical skills are like. How do you process things? How are you thinking about it? Do you have computer or technical literacy? How do you interact with people? So, how do you tell a story? How do you interact with people? Do you have flexibility or adaptability? So maybe, they ask you about a time when you were in a tough situation and you were able to resolve the issue. That's where you need to show your flexibility. You need to show that you were able to kind of move things around so that you were able to solve the problem. Planning and organization and your creativity or problem solving.
And this is your overall attitude. This is positive.
Okay, so this is a little out of order, but someone asked earlier what were some good questions to ask the interviewer. It is essential that you ask for the employer's business card. Alright, like we talked about earlier, you've got to make sure the spelling's correct. You need to email them a thank you, but it's essential you ask for their business card. Other good questions? Elizabeth, you asked about this. What brought you to this company? How would you describe a typical workday? How does this role support the company's overall initiatives? That's a good one, right? What kind of person thrives here? And one of the questions that you need to, this is a question you need to remember to ask during the interview. What are the next steps? If you leave the interview and haven't asked the interviewer, what the next steps are,
You be waiting forever.
you're going to be waiting forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might turn down another job because you think this one's coming.
Yeah.
But if you need, you want to show your interest too. That's another reason to ask that question. Yes.
What are the next step? The next step of what?
So I mean by asking that, what are the next steps in this job search process? Are you going to contact me? Should I, am I going to hear from you automatically in a week? Am I going to hear from you regardless? Sometimes you interview and you can just wait forever. You want to make sure that you're going to hear from the employer either way about whether or not they've filled this role.
When you expect to hear from you?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, another way to say what are the next steps? When should I expect to hear from you? Yeah, definitely. These are out of order, but day of the interview, always arrive 15 minutes before the scheduled time. Dress for success, be pleasant to everyone you meet, be ready for small talk. Definitely be ready for small talk. Grab the metro that day. like know what's going on so that you can make small talk with the admin. I heard someone say, I think Robin, you said yesterday, you don't want to be playing on your phone while you're waiting for that interview, right? While you're waiting for the person. You want to engage with the admin because
Right, because
everyone has an
we
opinion.
know someone that just went on the interview and one of the people that already worked there told them how to stand and position themselves because they were observing him while he was waiting.
Ooh, really?
Yes. And they made him wait for a half hour. And they were,
I'm just kidding. I didn't know that.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, one of the other people said, oh no, stand right over here because they're the big boss of the wings up there. And he said they're observing you, they do everybody. So now suppose he was standing there playing on the
Huh. Wow.
Right.
So keeping
Yeah.
up on current events is a good way to start small talk, right?
Current
Yeah.
events, I would.
Reading
Well,
the
it depends. Just
newspaper.
don't get too political and too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yes,
saying
yeah.
current events.
For me,
When
that's-
it's
Well, I'm just saying, some things like, make somebody upset.
like
Yeah.
you said, the metro, that's current events.
It is, but you want to be careful.
Oh, you mean the train in DC?
No,
No, I'm
the
talking about-
You
newspaper.
talk about, right?
Oh, I thought
that's-
something happened to the
Yeah.
metro train in DC.
No, the
That's
metro
right.
newspaper.
Really?
So the Metro paper.
Are these in our books? Are these?
We don't
These
have
questions are not. In
They're
your
not in
book.
our books.
No.
They're not.
Do you want? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you
Can
send
we
this
get
out? Woman will send it out to you guys.
No. Oh.
You'll get it. You'll get it.
Okay.
You'll get
Okay.
it. This is the intro.
Okay.
All right. So this is the most important part of the interview. This is something that's really important, and I wish Elizabeth hadn't just left. You need to send a thank you letter. Absolutely. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't send a thank you letter, you could be eliminating yourself. How quickly do you need to send a thank you letter?
As soon as possible. As soon as possible.
you leave the place.
No.
There's a time frame.
I would say the next day.
Within 24 hours.
Wow.
Now, if you want to handwrite a letter, Adis, then I wouldn't even say 2 weeks, but you have a little longer, but you absolutely need to email a thank you. If you want to also handwrite a thank you, that's great. That's like gravy, you know, that's going to make you
Because
look,
I get so many thank yous in the email.
that's going to make you stand out,
Yes.
but you need to send a thank you.
I want to thank you for it, and I put on the bulletin board.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because you get you buy, go and invest in a nice little box of thank yous that are blank on the inside that look nice, professional for a man or a woman.
Yep,
And you can have the same script that you write, just fill in the name, the company name, and you send it.
yep,
And if you get real good, you're gonna learn how to print it off the computer.
There you go.
Yeah.
And sign your name and send it.
You go
Yeah.
right in publish.
They're like, oh, you know what? I really like this person. They were poised. Now they say this is a pretty card.
you're right.
Put it on their little desk.
So that is great, but you absolutely have to make sure you email a thank you within 24 hours. Because if they're a recruiter, if they're in HR, or even if they're just an employee, they're going to be looking. And it honestly, like when Janet will be like, well, what did you think of that person? There have been times when I receive a thank you from the person, and I'm like, well, you know, I really appreciated the fact that she sent a thank you. So that might set one candidate apart from others. Set yourself apart, you know. Yeah, while it's fresh on your mind, I would literally jot down notes like right after the interview. In fact, I jot down notes
While you
during the
there?
interview.
While you there.
I have a blank notebook, and I have a bad memory. So I will jot down notes about the person. Like, I had a time when, you know, one of the people I was interviewing with used to, like, know one of my past coworkers or employers. So I jotted that down in my notebook, because that's something I want to mention when I send them a thank you, because that's how they remember me. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, I was the woman wearing the black suit, which everyone else wears. But you wanna make sure that you have something like a little bit of a situation that sets yourself apart, or that is a good way for them to remember you. Hopefully it's going to be more professional. That example is kind of outside the box, but if you talk about a familiar person, you know, that's an okay time to definitely cite that. So you need to send the email within 24 hours. Okay? And then you need to follow up with them after that. So I think that's
All right.
it. I want to go here real quickly. Now, this is a bit of a extensive email for the thank you. I wasn't planning on it. My husband was recently interviewing for a job, and this is the email he wrote. So obviously I took out some stuff. He's in finance. It's a little more than I expect, you know, for you guys. It's just it's a lot. I wouldn't even write this much, but it's a good example, and that's why I'm kind of showing it to you. So he wrote, "Dear blank, as we discussed, my blank years of experience will allow me to quickly assimilate to the financial team to work on whatever. Specifically, my ability to build detailed financial models and run diligence processes should immediately translate to help the team as it works through the robust acquisition pipeline. I also enjoyed hearing about the entrepreneurial spirit at blank. Throughout my career, I have worked at small firms that encompass the same spirit, where roles are more loosely defined and everyone has to pitch in where needed. Despite not having extensive aggregate experience, my recent work on the blank transition, coupled with a history of quickly learning specific industries and skills, should make me a valuable team member immediately. If you need any additional information, please contact me either by cell at blank or by email blank. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you."
So
Okay.
actually, this thank you based on the conversation they had.
Yeah, so
That's
you
why
want
we
to...
have to take notes.
You want to take notes. You want to be able to, this is your opportunity, guys. If there's something, like, you know how sometimes you leave an interview and you just feel like you didn't convince the hiring manager fully that you were ready for the job, that you were the right pick? This is your chance, or maybe you do feel that way, but you just want to reiterate it. This is your chance to reiterate it. This is your chance to sell yourself again, you know, and to let them know that you are that best candidate, and this is why. So maybe there's something they had a question about and you feel like you didn't really answer it as well as you could have. The thank you letter is a chance for you to do so, to go into some more detail, maybe. Okay? I want you guys to think about that, but this is that one more chance to kind of get in the employer's face. Yeah?
Now, say if you're applying for a supermarket cash register job, does that apply to it too? Or is that for like a business, like a...
This specific thank you letter?
Yes.
So this specific thank you letter, I don't think you should, I mean, you can use parts of it. I wouldn't use it unless it was specific to that job. You can definitely, like the way he talks about it in the beginning, as we discussed, that's great, you know, allow me to quickly assimilate to the team to work on blank. That's good. You want to let them know you're going to quickly be able to join the team. But then in that middle paragraph, you cannot repeat that, because that's going to be individual to every person. You know, you're not going to have the same conversation with the hiring manager that he had. So you want to make sure that it's specific to the company or the position for which you're applying, right? But yeah, the first and the last paragraphs are outlines. And you want to have that middle paragraph. Again, it's a 3-paragraph model, just like the cover letter. You want to reiterate your details or your qualifications in that middle paragraph. So this is just an example, but there's, you know, other examples as well. But we just kind of wanted to give you guys another example for what you should be sending in those thank you letters. So then you get the offer, right? They call you and they say, oh, Wilma, we so enjoyed meeting with you last week, and we want to make you an offer for XYZ. Do you need to answer immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
He said
want the job.
they send you the what?
The offer. If they call you.
Yeah, they'll give you like, I think they give you a couple days.
So if you're talking to the recruiter, do you say, yes, I will start Monday?
No, I say yes, I will accept the offer.
Okay.
My start date is the next day.
Okay, so you can absolutely, unless you feel like some sort of pressure or you know that they're on a timeline, you can absolutely take 24 hours to think about the offer. I always say, sounds great, and please, like Robin said, definitely express your interest. Say, this sounds great, but let me go home and talk about it with my spouse. Let me make sure that, it's something we can do. You can absolutely, accept the offer. Don't feel like you have to take 24 hours, but if you want to take time to think about it, this is your opportunity.
I just want to make an observation on the live scribe pens, because I see several people have them out in the recording. If you do not make a mark on your live scribe book on the topics where she is, you can use it as a tape recorder. You got to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you just want to go back to cover letters, you need to make a mark that says cover letters. You're going to make a mark that says thank you. And now you're going to go back to that. Other than that, you have to listen to the whole class.
I'm not that interested,
And I mean, in that case, you might even watch the video clip that we'll have.
We'll send to you.
Because you need to listen to thank you letters over and over and over to get what she said. You go right back to that spot that you made the mark. And that's all you're going to hear is thank you letters. That's how you use the live scribe pen.
So who's using the live scribe right now? Okay. Are you using it correctly? Do you kind of know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate that as you move forward.
Listen to
Wilma.
Wilma.
Of information, you've got to use it right. Because this last BBC class, they were not using it right when they got in. Okay, you got to mark. Like if she says the offer, you make an X and it says the offer. Now record what she's saying. The next thing she said cover letter, you make a mark, say cover letter. Now record whatever's being said. The next thing said thank you, you make a mark. You say thank you, record. Now if you only want to hear cover letter, you're going to touch on that spot that you made the mark. Other than that, you got to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay? This is my best friend.
Oh my gosh, Wilma is amazing with the live scribe.
It's my best friend. And I got it because of my disability. I had a sincere concussion. Okay? With my accident. My cognitive things, sometimes I don't remember.
Will they allow me to get another one since I lost one?
You have to talk to Chris about that.
You have to talk to Chris about it.
So there is now actually Stephanie.
Yes.
Can you grab those handouts that Juanita was holding before and pass them out? So we now have sample interview questions that I want you to work with the person next to you. I want each person to fill out one of these sheets. Okay? So you're going to put your name, you're going to put their name. I'm going to email these to you.
I'm sorry.
Stephanie's fine.
I'll email it to you. Yeah, it's in Word. So you can fill it out.
I need one too.
Okay, so sorry, John. So we're gonna do some. We're gonna work with the person next to us to complete those questions. Obviously, I want you to, if you are the interviewer, I want you to evaluate